Yeah,
That
that's for our
background is
YouTube
killer.
videos. We use it for all our new YouTube videos. My daughter's food review channel.
And the T-shirt too, man. I'm feeling it.
Oh yeah, Macho Man and the Dragon. And hell, I've even got my He-Man coffee mug.
Look at that, man!
And it's his and hers because on the back is She-Ra, so you can turn it either way you want.
Oh, look at that! I like that. Cool. You are rambling right along, ready for this show.
I try.
All right, we're gonna get into the podcast here and talk a little TV from 1989. So here we go. Welcome back to the Rediscover the 80s podcast and another episode of Rank 'em, the show that remembers your favorite stuff from the 80s. Just had what was that? Did you touch your mic?
Oh, yeah, I may have. I'm sorry, man.
Okay. No, that's all right.
I got to remember to be careful with this thing.
It's okay. Let me back up there and we'll start it over again. Welcome back to the Rediscover the 80s podcast and another episode of Rank 'em, the show that remembers your favorite stuff from the 80s and ranks them in a top 5 countdown. I am your host, Jason Gross, and we are continuing to celebrate the 30th anniversary of all things 1989. And on this Rank 'em, we are going to be going through our favorite TV shows that debuted in 89. And my guest for this episode is a familiar voice who helped me the last time we ranked TV shows. He is Mickey Yarber of RetroRamblings.com and the Retro Rambler YouTube channel. How are you, sir?
Afternoon, Jason. A little under the weather, but otherwise doing okay.
Well, I appreciate you coming back here. And how you been doing? It's been a while since you've been on the podcast. And how's things going over there at the Retro Rambler?
Slower than usual. I ain't had a whole lot of time lately to be putting up new stuff, but you know how life goes. Fortunately, the way the internet works, all the old stuff's still there, and it can wait forever for new stuff to go up. So,
yes, yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, you see several articles that are several years old go through as we, we have our normal 9-to-5 jobs we have to go to every day. It's a shame we can't all just come together somehow and pull our resources and do this as a full-time job. But we do what we can, and it's fun. It's all in good fun.
We do what we can when we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have seen some videos up there. I've seen you some review a few things over the last several months there. The Dino Drek pack, and what was the one we just released the other day that I was watching?
Mallow cups and smoothie cups.
There you go. The Mallow cups. Yes. Yeah. That triggered a memory going back to my childhood. And there was a little amusement park for Boyer Foods, which I believe is the one that manufactures the Mallow cups. And they had a little Hershey Park knockoff for a few years. And I remember visiting that on a field trip as a kid. So that was a nice little memory jolt you gave me there watching that video.
Well, I done it because my daughter never tried smoothies, and I wanted a reason to buy some for myself. So, but it worked out good because the fine folks at Boyer reached out to us on social media and told us we'd done a great job and have some stuff headed their way for such a good review. So
nice. I love it when that happens. The power of social media. That's the good part of social media right there. When you tag them in something you did and they reach out to you.
Being able to get it in front of them.
Absolutely. That's why I have a Lego Back to the Future DeLorean. That happened to me several years ago when they released that set, and I was like, "You're kidding me!" I couldn't believe when it showed up at the house. They didn't tell me what it was going to be, and here it is, a Lego DeLorean. I was blown away.
I was
blown away.
Well, maybe we'll get some old TV box sets out of this thing here today, then.
Yeah, we'll have to tag Mill Creek or one of those companies and see what we can come up with in '89. But '89 was a pretty good year for TV shows. And before we get into our top 5 list, as we like to do on Rank 'em, we give a little context of the year, and particularly we're going to look at what was the top 10 in the Nielsen ratings for the fall of 1989 and the spring of 1990, as they kind of split years there with the ratings. But we're going to go through that, and then we're going to give you our top 5 list. So number 10 in 1989 was Monday Night Football. Came in at number 10 on ABC. Always a top-rated show, and always shows that seem to, either preempt that or come after that because of that high rating, it seemed like.
Well, I know in 89 I contributed to that rating because as a 49er fan, we were on our march to our 4th Super Bowl championship that season. So
there you go.
Tried to keep up with the times.
Absolutely. Team of the 80s. Number 9 was the show we talked about last time that we podcasted, Empty Nest. That was on NBC. A Saturday night show. It's fun to look at these ratings and think there was top 10 shows on Saturday night. Because now it's like the death night, it seems like.
Beyond looking at the ratings, just to look back through old TV guides and to see the shows we finally remember and don't quite remember that they were on Saturday night when you would expect them to be on some weeknight.
Right. Number 8, The Wonder Years on ABC. And again, this was not a show that I connected with as a kid, really in the reruns either. Have not gone back and watched the full series, but I know it's highly regarded for many people.
You didn't get into the romance with Kevin and Winnie?
I didn't.
Come on, man.
I did not. No. What was his nerdy friend? Can't remember his name. Paul.
Yeah.
Did not get into that at all. No.
Grew up to be Marilyn Manson.
That is an urban legend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, number 7, the CBS staple on Sunday night, 60 Minutes. We'll just go right on to the next one because I have really nothing to say about 60 Minutes other than
the longest 90 minutes of your life right there.
Right. Oh, man. My Graham, between Murder, She Wrote, which I could stomach sometimes, and then 60 Minutes, that was a long couple hours there.
Yeah.
Number 6, The Golden Girls on NBC. Of course, that was back-to-back with Empty Nest on Saturday nights. Still running strong there. Number 5, America's Funniest Home Videos on ABC, which actually debuted this year in 89. Bob Saget was the original host, for those you don't remember that original run. I can remember watching it a little bit, but I didn't catch on to Funniest Home Videos until probably in the 90s.
Well, we'll talk about it more here in a little bit, but it was YouTube before YouTube. So.
Right, yeah. Number 4, A Different World on NBC. Of course, that was always right after The Cosby Show, which we'll get to here on the list. Number 3 was Cheers on Thursday nights on NBC. Of course, that was a very, very popular show for, I don't know how many seasons, a dozen maybe? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe 11, 10 or 11, 12.
Yeah. And then this year we actually had a tie for number 1.
Cosby Show and what else?
Roseanne.
Ah.
Roseanne tied it in the ratings. Roseanne was on Tuesday nights. So Tuesday was a pretty big night for ABC with Roseanne and then The Wonder Years. And then, of course, Thursdays was the staple for all those comedies on NBC with The Cosby Show, Different World, Cheers. So, yeah, Roseanne, big, strong push that year and tied Cosby for the ratings after, I don't know how many years The Cosby Show had been on top.
Well, that says a lot about Roseanne because this season we're talking about, it debuted in 88, so it was only in its second season. So.
Second season, tremendously popular. Then we're going to look just a few moments in history, TV history from 89. January 9th, Pat Sajak quit the daytime version of Wheel of Fortune to host his own talk show. I had not remembered this.
Oh, yeah.
Ran for 298 episodes until April of the next year.
Yeah, but still considered a bomb, though. I mean,
yeah, right. First guest on that show was Chevy Chase. Little fun fact there. January 29th of 89, the children's show Shining Time Station debuted on PBS, which was our first introduction as Americans to Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh, wow.
Yep, 1989. March 2nd of that year was the Pepsi's 2-minute Make-A-Wish advertisement with Madonna and her song Like a Prayer aired during the Cosby Show. It actually aired, I think might have been the night before or a week before with, I think it was the Grammys. Very controversial, but that was the first time a song actually debuted in a television commercial.
Huh.
Believe it or not. It was before the album was ever released or anything. So that's how she chose to launch her Like a Prayer album.
Wow.
With that Pepsi commercial. I thought that was really interesting. I do remember that commercial. I don't remember it being like, if I watched it when it was first aired or not, but it was like an event. I mean, 2-minute long commercial. So where it's the premise of the commercial was, it was like Madonna. They show her as like a little kid and then her aspirations and all that. And then they, I think, meet up together at the end of the commercial. And I can't remember what the line is that she says with her younger self standing next to her. I have to look that one up on YouTube.
I don't believe I've ever seen that.
March 10th that year was the series finale of Webster. And I thought this was interesting. I remember watching Webster off and on, but the very last episode, he's transported on the USS Enterprise, and and Michael Dorn guest stars as Lieutenant Worf from the show. So what a series finale! You're on the Enterprise.
Huh. Well, yeah.
A few more. April 8th, after a 10-month hiatus, American Bandstand reemerged on the USA Network, and David Hirsch took over for Dick Clark, and it remained on there for 26 more weeks, and then American Bandstand was done in October of 89. So made a little bit of a run there on the USA Network, and then it was gone. May 14th, we have the series finale of Family Ties, and the show that actually took its slot was one I'm not sure if we'll talk about tonight or not. Was Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I don't remember Family Ties in prime time. I only ever saw it in syndication in the afternoons, but I watched the heck out of it then. But
yeah, we didn't watch a lot of it either.
And I remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off, the TV series. I thought it was on Sunday nights, or maybe Family Ties was on Sunday nights. Hell, I don't know. I never watched it in prime time.
Yeah, I never watched either of them. And well, take that for what it's worth, coming from Wikipedia. So that could be wrong.
Well, that's true.
I do a little bit of research, but that's maybe a little bit beyond Wiki for these shows. I do know this happened for a fact, though. September 16th, the pilot for the proposed X-Men animated series, which a lot of fans hold in high regard, X-Men Pride of the X-Men. It was first broadcast, but it took 3 years before an animated series actually was produced. So I go back and I watch that once in a while on YouTube. It's out there and available.
I never saw it when you're talking about here when it debuted, but several years later, I found a VHS copy of it at a local department store and watched it for the first time here in the early 90s. It's pretty good. I'm glad it led to the actual cartoon.
Yep. All right, just a few more. ABC on September 22nd debuted TGIF on Friday nights from 8 to 10. The first 4 shows were Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, and Just the 10 of Us. So
still my favorite lineup of TGIF right there.
Yep. It basically ran throughout the 90s up until 2000. Actually, very highly rated
Well,
on those Friday nights.
when you're 11, 12 years old and you can't go out on Friday nights and stuff, then TGIF was the next best thing. So I love TGIF.
Yep. September 24th, NBC broadcast the 15th anniversary special for Saturday Night Live. Several of the cast members came back. Tom Hanks was the opening monologue, and Prince and Paul Simon actually performed. And there's a bunch of flashbacks and everything throughout the years. And there were special tributes to John Belushi and to Gilda Radner on the special. And then two more. I remember this moment pretty vividly. October 17th, 4 minutes into ABC's broadcast of Game 3 of the World Series, the earthquake occurred and forced a 10-day delay of the World Series. I remember being at my grandmother's house that night, and it goes black, and you're wondering what in the world's going on, and then they cut back in and tell you what's happening. You see the pictures, the aftermath of what happened, and it was pretty crazy time.
The first season of ESPN's 30 for 30 documentaries, they devote a documentary to it, and it's really, really good.
Yes, I have seen that. Good call.
The one part in it that I didn't realize until I watched that was because cameras were there, they were the first to actually report the earthquake on television. So ESPN, the sports network, broke that story. It's pretty interesting.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then finally, on November 15th, the Comedy Channel debuted, which would later become Comedy Central 2 years later. So that debuted in '89.
I grew up with a small town cable company. We never had those cool channels like that and Sci-Fi and the other channels that debuted until like late 90s, 96, 97, when all the good programming was already gone from them.
Yep. Yeah, ours is the same way. I remember watching MTV pretty early on, but yeah, some of those in the later 80s, I don't know when we added those, probably at least a couple years after they debuted and became more popular, I guess. So, okay, well, that's just a little glimpse of TV in 1989, and we're going to get into our lists now. Of course, our ground rules are just our personal favorites, as we always say. These aren't, what should be at the top based on their ratings or something. I'm sure we're going to have possibly some popular shows that might have been in that top 10 in our lists, but we're just kind of basing on our favorites, what we remember watching that year. So without further ado, sir, you have the floor. What's your number 5 pick for 1989?
I get to go first?
You get to go first. Yes.
Well, you've already mentioned it. America's Funniest Home Videos was,
nice.
Again, talking about being young and not getting to go out and do things Sunday nights. The last part of the weekend, when America's Funniest Home Videos started, that was something that you could actually look forward to on Saturday night at the end of the weekend. So, like I said earlier, it was YouTube before YouTube. Nowadays, kids can go on YouTube and watch all the fail videos they want. Well, kids, back in my day, you got 30 minutes a week, and that was it. And after commercials and Bob Saget talking, you had more like 12 or 13 minutes of fail videos a week. But they were glorious. But they weren't like fails today. I mean, in 1989, we thought it was the funniest thing in the world, a video of a cat falling off a television, But
into an aquarium, yeah.
Yeah. But it was, I don't know. It's more nostalgia than the show being great. Well, I mean, the show's great because it went for 20 some odd years, I guess. They went through multiple hosts after Bob Saget. And
it's still going.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I think you can still find it. So it spawned other shows like, I can't think of these people's names. The dude on Comedy Central, Tosh.
Tosh.0 and all those.
I mean, this was the grandfather to all of that.
Yeah.
One of the early pioneers, I guess you call it reality TV. Cops debuted same year. Rescue 911 and stuff all debuted. But, America's Funniest Home Videos, it's like that's the first chunk of reality television. But I can still remember the first episode. The series America's Funniest Home Videos didn't debut actually in '89. It debuted in January '90. November '89 was a one-time special, but the ratings were so big they quickly made it a series. But I remember the very first episode, a guy playing baseball, running in the outfield for a fly ball, jumps up to catch it, falls over the fence, and it rips his pants off. I just thought that was the funniest thing I had ever seen at that point in time. I don't remember, but if I had recorded that, I'm sure I watched it back 100 times after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 5 pick's America's Funniest Home Videos.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. It was actually my first one out of my list. America's Funniest Videos. I actually just watched an episode last night, pulled off of Hulu, and decided I'm boycotting the show because the family that won the funniest video, it was this dad. He was feeding his kid, and he looked up to the TV, and he had the spoon out, and the kid's trying to, eat with the spoon, and he keeps moving it out without seemingly recognizing it. It was funny. It was okay. But the reason I'm boycotting, they're from Canada. America's Funniest Home Videos. And they give, it blew my mind. I was like, okay, so I'm sure they watch American television in Canada, but I don't know. There's just something fundamentally wrong about I have nothing against Canadians, but I have family that, extended family that lives in Canada. So
for all our friends in Canada and all your listeners in Canada, Canada is part of North America. So I think on a technicality basis, I think they can get by with that one.
North America's Funniest Home Videos doesn't have the same ring.
No,
it doesn't have the same ring.
I'm stretching.
But Carlton now hosts it. Alfonso Ribeiro.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like they will take some of those old clips and they'll run montages of cats jumping in the air from a dog or something, and they'll blur out. You remember back in the day, of course, they had like the date and time as you're recording these, and they'll blur it out what date it is. I think that's the funniest thing. I don't care if it was like 20 years ago.
I mean, funny.
Just leave it on there, but.
Funny is funny. It don't matter when it's from.
Right. Exactly. But anyway, that's a good pick. Just missed my my top 5.
Oh man, I had to cut a whole lot out. When you first brought this up and you're like, we can include animation if you need to. I'm like, well, no, I've got like 40 shows here. It's going to be hard enough without animation. So 89.
Yeah,
89 was a great year for new shows.
Yeah.
Great year.
Yeah, I did. I made a list of, let's see, at least 15 here. So yeah, great year. Okay. So number 5 for me was one that I remember specifically watching with my dad. American Gladiators.
Oh yeah,
is my number 5. And it was, I don't know what it was about American Gladiators, because I was into wrestling at the time. It was probably feigning a little bit, I would say, when I got to my high school years, and then I got back into wrestling during the Monday Night Wars. But you had these, they were wrestlers to a certain extent, just the bodybuilders and the way they looked, and just the fun of watching these people trying to combat these guys, the jousting, the game where you had those tubes and you had to run and get this ball into the tube, while they're trying to knock you around. Powerball. And then the obstacle course there where they're trying to shoot that huge target. And they've got like several things. They can throw it, I think, a couple times. They had like a pistol, and then they get to that rocket launcher. And then, trying to get up there, they threw it when they got to the end. That's right, when they're so close. And then them shooting those tennis balls 100 miles an hour at your forehead, I ate it up. And I can't remember it. I can't remember if it was like I want to say it was like a Saturday afternoon show maybe or something during the weekend, because Dad would have it on. We'd watch it, and he's like oogling over the ladies, and I'm just watching it for the wrestling kind of factor and the gauntlet at the end. Oh my gosh, I just love the American Gladiators.
Yeah, they it was syndicated in my neck of the woods. It was on at noon every Saturday.
Okay.
Which was perfect because wrestling was on at 1 o'clock on Saturday. So you get the back to back, and I was big in the wrestling. Yeah, big in the
that
wrestling
makes sense.
too,
makes sense.
The obstacle course thing you're talking about, assault, and my cousin and I always wished that they had American Gladiators for kids, but they didn't. So we created our own assault course.
Nice.
And we used acorns, and we were chucking them at each other, and them little suckers hurt. But we had different trees you could run behind. But I'm going to ask you this though: do you remember the first season was split in half? The first half had like a medieval Roman Colosseum theme to it. Most people don't remember that, but you can find them on YouTube. Everybody remembers the red, white, and blue and all the geometric shapes and the actual sporting event look. But go back on YouTube and watch, because I started watching from the first season. So the way you're talking about assault, you have all the different shaped blocks that they can hide behind.
Right.
Well, in the original, they had like fake bushes and fake trees and things.
Okay.
And the referees actually wore hooded executioner uniforms. I'm serious. And the joust that you're familiar with, they're on the two pedestals battling it out.
Right.
On the original version, they're on like this bridge, and they'd meet in the middle and fight and try to knock each other off. And if you backed up too far, you triggered a trap door and you fell. So
oh my God, I got to go watch this like right now. Let's just stop the podcast. I'm going to go bring it up. I don't remember that at all.
Well,
wow.
They done that first half of the season, and the ratings were good enough for syndication that they're like, okay, we've got a possible syndication hit here. So they retooled it a little bit to make it even more popular and took those themes out of it. But it started with 3 male and 3 female gladiators. And the hook was, from that first half of the season, the grand prize was if you won, you got to become a gladiator for the next season. Wow. But I'm not sure if that actually happened or not. But yeah, you definitely need to go back and watch that. That's awesome. The first season is.
Oh my gosh. I have really good memories of that with my dad. We didn't watch a whole lot of shows together, but that one we just both ate up so much. And did they do an animated show with American Gladiators or something?
I'm trying to remember. They did. I missed it.
I don't remember it specifically. I know they did toys because I found an action figure of Turbo at RetroCon last year. I was like, oh, I'm taking this. I never had this was rated my freshman year in high school. So I wasn't too big into action figure collecting once I got into my high school years. But I saw that last year. I was like, oh, I'm going to have this. Yeah.
Oh, no, not just action figures. They had play sets from the different games and things.
Did they? Okay.
A Nintendo game, a Super Nintendo game. Super Nintendo game is much better, where you can actually play some of the competitions.
Gotcha. Yeah, I do remember the NES game. I can't remember which one of my friends had it, but I do remember that. I don't remember the SNES game.
And
cool.
The way they set it up kept you watching. In theory, you could get burnt out after a few weeks of watching the competition, but if you're into sports, it had enough of that for it. But the fact that they had so many gladiators, each week you saw a different mix. They had so many games, each week you had a different mix of games. So you kept watching, hoping, like, I love the assault. So I'm hoping every week there's the assault. You know? So it had a lot of little hooks like that. It kept it popular. Made you keep watching.
Yeah. And I loved it when the contestants got really into it. They're really competitive. They're getting thrown around, but they didn't give up, and just that Powerball game just reminded me so much of just that attitude of just trying to bully your way through these huge guys and get the ball in the hole. It's, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was a great show. Great show.
Okay, on to your number 4, sir.
Well, my number 4 was American Gladiators.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Well, I've got a replacement, though.
Okay.
I try to come prepared for this stuff. and since you like the American Gladiator Wrestling Connection, I got another one for you. Rock and Roller Games. Did you watch Roller Games back then?
I remembered a little bit, but I don't remember it like being a regular show that I watched.
Well, it was on in syndication here on Saturday afternoons at 2:00 after American Gladiators and Wrestling. So the whole thing kept going.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure you've seen roller derby. People listening
Yes.
have seen roller derby on the oval track. Well, Rock and Roller Games took it to a whole nother level. They had the figure 8 track, and they were running in circles, but your two jammers, they called them, would break off and go through the figure 8. It had this big wall, and it had multiple lines on it. The higher you got, the more points you scored. You come down to a ramp, and if you cleared a line, you got points for it. And they really ramped up the pro wrestling type storylines. I mean, there were contract disputes and fights and all the teams. But what made it really cool was Rock and Roller Games. Every episode at halftime had a musical act. People like Warrant, Lita Ford, Expose, they perform. So not only are you watching this cool wrestling themed sports show, but you get this MTV vibe from it too. And diehards would shoot me if I forgot to mention Overtime. And you can find this on YouTube. It's a separate clip. They had an alligator pit. So when a game went to overtime, it was a one-on-one game, and they put the alligators on the track that you were having to jump and yada, yada, yada.
Oh, my gosh.
And there were two ways to win. You could score a point, or you could throw your opponent into the alligator pit. And they made these guys that you've watched skate around. They're wearing their uniforms. Well, for some reason, I guess maybe to protect them from the alligators, they made them put on these black leather gimp hoods and stuff like sexual deviants and for this final race. I mean, this show was awesome. If American Gladiators and pro wrestling didn't get your adrenaline up, then you had Rock and Roller Games that would just push you right over the top. So since you took American Gladiators, I'm going with Rock and Roller Games as my number 4 pick.
I swear to God, as soon as we get off this podcast, I'm going to YouTube for American Gladiators and Rock and Roller Games. Oh my gosh. I just don't remember that whole. I kind of remember there's like different lines where they could hit. I do remember that, and like them almost like slingshotting each other to get as high as they could on those to score points and stuff. But I don't remember any of the other stuff at all.
The marketing genius of it all was they only had one overtime game with the alligators, and it was the very first episode. So you watch the first one, you're like, what are they going to do next? But everything else after that was, and I can't remember. I hate to keep going on about this, but
that's okay. Go ahead.
I gotta put this part in. They had an alligator handler, and for the life of me, I can't remember his name, but he was this big Lorenzo Lamas looking dude with long blonde hair, and he wore a loincloth, and he would carry the alligators out and put them in the pit.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And then, oh my gosh. You may have seen on different movies or maybe on YouTube. You remember the show, what was the name of it? Hot Properties or Hot Ticket? It had Wally George. It was like a scripted Jerry Springer type show. But he was a mix between Jerry Springer and Jay Leno or Johnny Carson. Well, they hired him since he was in L.A. to be the halftime recap guy. And he is so far over the top. Like, think about Vince McMahon in the late 80s as an announcer, how over the top he was. Take that to 11 with this Wally George cat.
Wow.
And you add all this together, and it was just awesome. Awesome television. Unfortunately,
ladies and gentlemen,
it only ran one season.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is why we love the 80s and why we podcast about the 80s. Because this is the only era where you're going to get some crazy stuff like this. I'm telling you.
And the Nintendo game was called Roller Games, but it was totally not a figure 8 track. It was a side-scrolling first-person game. But the arcade version, you could actually play the figure 8 track. And one more thing. When you watch on YouTube, search Mr. Mean Goes Over the Wall, because Mr. Mean was a bad, bad dude. And he actually went over the wall. Oh, yeah, by the way, they called it the Wall of Death. It wasn't just a wall. It was the Wall of Death. He got so high, he flew over the back of it. Awesome. So anyway, I'm done.
Mr. Mean Wall of Death. Okay. Yes. Mental note taken. Okay.
Top that with your number 4 pick.
Wow. I probably can, but not, I mean, in the same craziness sense. Number number 4 for me, I remember watching early on and being sucked in mainly because of the time travel factor. Quantum Leap.
Yes.
Loved Quantum Leap. The theme song, I still love the theme song. I'm pretty sure it's a Mike Post theme. Just great, kind of going through the years that he's, flashing back to. Great cast, Scott Bakula, Dean Stockwell. They just had really good rapport together too. And I don't know, it was fun. It was fun in an almost Back to the Future kind of way. The first episode, obviously, I don't think he ever flashed to the future. It was always like backwards, right, to correct whatever went wrong. But yeah, some of those earlier episodes, the baseball one, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones that just, I don't know. It was really neat. And then it was always fun when he jumped into the girl, and put on the dress and makeup. Oh boy. Yeah, that catch line. I loved Quantum Leap. What's your thoughts on Quantum Leap?
My mom and I were both big fans. I've told you before, my dad traveled, so it was just me and her a lot watching television, and we loved Quantum Leap because even though I hated school like all kids did, if I had to pick a favorite subject, it would have been history. And today, history is my favorite subject, but well, besides 80s and retro. So there again, that show had a great hook. You had the overarching storyline he's trying to get back, but every episode was completely different. It was a different period in history. It was a different mission. And like you said, you mentioned the baseball episode and the one where he's a cop as the Hurricane Camille is coming in the Gulf back in the 60s, and he's trying to rescue people. And every episode was just great, and it tackled a lot of issues. He would leap into a black man in the racist South and during civil rights and stuff. He left into rock stars. I think in one episode he became Elvis, I believe, like maybe in the last season or something.
Sounds kind of familiar. Didn't he there's a wrestler or boxer episode maybe?
Yeah, he became a wrestler in one.
That show, it was always fun because you never knew, and he never knew what it was going to take to get out of the situation itself, because he obviously not a boxer, never been trained or anything like that, or a wrestler. I can't remember which it was, but then, he would work something out and it would come right up to the point where he's going to like throw that first punch and then he leaps out, and it was fun in the fact that it was, you never knew from week to week, okay, where are we going this week? And then trying to figure out the mystery of what he has to do to get out of that situation each week too. It was just a great premise for a show.
Yeah, I loved it. And still, the wife and I will watch episodes of it here and there every now and then today. The fact that of course, the whole series is dated to its time period, so you can watch it now. And, people say shows like without cell phones and internet, they call those dated shows and hard to watch. Well, every episode in this is dated, but it makes sense, so it don't take you out of the experience because you're not expecting to see a lot of that stuff in the first place. So it still holds up really, really well today. Yeah,
I agree. I've watched a few. I haven't gotten back and watched like a full season in forever. But as it comes to streaming here and there, I have, and I think now they've pulled it. It might be on the NBC, just the NBC app or something. But anyway, really fun show. Fond memories of that. All right, number 3, Halfway Home.
USA's Up All Night. Up All Night with Gilbert Gottfried and Rhonda Shear. And that, again, you can't go out and do anything. You're stuck at home on Friday nights when you're 11, 12 years old. What better way than at 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday nights watching crappy B movie? Well, I ain't going to say crappy because I like just about everything on there. And sometimes they have really good movies, but the bumpers, the wraparounds with Gilbert Gottfried and Rhonda Shear just made the movies. But it made it event television. I may have seen this movie 2 years ago, but it seems completely new now because I'm getting all these wraparounds and this cool commentary, and it felt like, you felt, or at least me, you felt like one of the cool kids at school on Monday morning because you stayed up till 3 in the morning watching Up All Night and talking about it with your friends. And the way they would do the themes sometimes, if Friday fell on the 13th, you'd have Friday the 13th marathon and on Friday and Saturday night. So a lot of you. I don't want to get too off the rails here, but you at that age,
I know where you're going. Yeah,
entering puberty and things, and these are movies that kind of play to this awakening you're having as a pre-teenager. And you're like, holy crap, I'm staying up late. Everybody's in bed. I'm watching this dirty movie. And it was wonderful. It was just wonderful.
Yeah. Very, very liberating, I guess you'll say. And at the same time, yeah, just, I don't know. I have memories of staying up or, watching either one. It didn't really matter, Gilbert or Rhonda. But it was always like Bikini Car Wash or, one of these Hot Dog the Movie. And even in its edited version was still very risque. And there was a reason why it was on at midnight, But yeah, you were cool. Like, because we did that too, like in high school and even probably to some extent in middle school years where, I stayed up last night and watched David Letterman throw a watermelon off a tower, or I stayed up and watched this and that. And there was a cool factor for staying up and watching these crappy movies.
Well, I've done a little half-ass research myself outside of Wikipedia for a lot of these picks. I didn't realize that from the time it debuted until the time it went off, they filmed over 900 episodes of Up All Night. So it had a good long run. A lot of people stayed with it, I guess you could say.
See, I don't remember a lot of the shtick that they did in between commercials and lead-ins and stuff. I just remember them doing something goofy or something centered around whatever movie they're showing. And then, it was like little maybe 4 to 5 minute segments, if that, strung together after the commercial breaks.
Some examples would be like, I remember Gilbert Gottfried, around Halloween one year, was in a haunted house. And so every bumper, he was like in a different room with another jump scare. And he's, not cussing, but using his language. And so while you were watching a movie, you had this going on too. So he was watching two things at the same time.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Good choice there. Very good choice. And yeah, that was kind of my introduction to Gilbert. Between that and Hollywood Squares, probably.
And I'll pull it all the way back here. I'll tie everything up for you.
Sure.
You and Chad just talked about 1989 movies. Up All Night was the first time I watched 976 Evil. So I know he was a big fan of that. And
there you go. There you go.
First time I saw that was with Gilbert Gottfried.
Nicely done, sir. See, this is why I have you on the show. You actually bring some some elements outside of Wikipedia that I don't do.
Yeah, I listen to your show.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, we are the history here, okay? We don't rely just on Wikipedia. This is our experiences. So anyway. Okay, number 3 for me. Yes, I might have watched this a little bit in high school, and I'm not afraid to say it because I still watch Saturday morning shows. The Super Mario Brothers Super Show at number 3. And I love the show just based on the fact that you got the cartoon and then you got Captain Lou. I don't remember the man's name who played Luigi. And all these fun little guests in between. Magic Johnson would pop by. You had Winston from the Ghostbusters, Ernie Hudson. He was there for and it was totally like off the wall. It was Ghostbusters, but they didn't call it Ghostbusters. You know what I mean? So they got around like all the licensing and all the whatever they had to red tape they'd have to go through to actually have like a Ghostbusters episode. But I just loved it. I loved the show. Went through the whole series with my little girl probably about 2 years ago now. She loved it. My wife, of course, just dreaded it. Hates the song at the end. Do the Mario. But we loved it, and that song was in our heads for months on end. Yeah, it's totally campy and totally, if you weren't into like wrestling and Captain Lou, you probably didn't watch. You're waiting for the cartoon to come on or something. Didn't really care about that part, but it was just, I don't know. I had fun with it, and everybody that was into Super Mario Brothers. The episodes were great as well, the cartoon episodes. So what do you have to say about it?
Confession, I've never watched it. I think maybe I tuned in once, like you said, for the Captain Lou appeal as a wrestling fan, but I never really watched it. And as much as I was into Nintendo, like Captain N, the Game Master, that was a show I couldn't get into either. It just something about the video game cartoons just didn't appeal to me, and so I'd never really watched an episode of Super Mario. So I'm totally in the dark about these great experiences you're describing. You make it sound wonderful, though.
Oh, going back and watching it now is just fun. If you can get past, like I said, the kind of campiness of it, but seeing Magic Johnson show up to their house and wanting them to fix his trophy. And something happens during the show, Mario sits on it or something, and they got to put it back together before Magic comes back. It's just ridiculous. It's totally ridiculous, but at the same time, it's fun. I don't know. I can stand it. I can watch it now and laugh. I don't know. It was just a fun show, and I don't know. It didn't last. I don't think a whole long time, maybe a couple seasons, and then they did do I think a Super Mario 3 cartoon that was somewhat in the same realm as what was kind of continuing what they started with this show. But oh my gosh, yeah, you just got to go over to YouTube and watch the outro credits for the do the Mario swing your hips from side to side. Yep. I'm not going to sing the whole song, but
because it's you asking, I will go check that out. But otherwise,
it might still be on Netflix. I'm not sure. It was on there for the longest time. So go find the Ernie Hudson episode too. That was really fun because they Luigi turns into this like green slime like creature. And it's great. He got to come and get him back to normal. Anyway. All right. Craziness. We're up to number 2. What you got?
Saved by the Bell. And I talked about this on the 88 show, Good Morning Miss Bliss, turning into Saved by the Bell. That's the whole reason I put Good Morning Miss Bliss on the 88 list of TV shows. But Saved by the Bell, again, that caught me at the perfect age, 11, 12 years old. Not far off from high school, not too far off to where you weren't already thinking about it and dreaming it. And buddy, let me tell you what a disappointment it was to actually get to high school, and it was nothing like Bayside. Just nothing like Bayside. I didn't have
do the timeout, to stop everybody in their tracks. And yeah,
Saved by the Bell filled my heads of me being like this Zach Morris character in school and being cool and everything. When it turned out it was more like Screech, But no, seriously, the Brandon Tartikoff, who fought for that show and got it on the air, made such a great decision with that. The way they retooled, Good Morning Miss Bliss. I don't know how many seasons went. 3, 4, not counting the college years and all that. But
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's 4.
If and they were like 13 episode seasons. So you've seen each episode like 4 times in a year before you've seen the new season. If I pressed myself, I could probably sit here and recall the plot of every episode because I've seen them so many times. And now that they stream them, I've watched them all again. And and speaking of that age range there, you're feeling like, I still like my cartoons, but I'm a little old for it. So here comes this on Saturday mornings, and it was okay because it's not cartoons, but you're still watching stuff on Saturday mornings. And the characters were cool, and the plot lines were cool, and I just loved it.
Yeah. Saved by the Bell is my number 2 as well, and it is one of those shows that just hit at the perfect time, and you're just getting really interested in girls, and playing all that out on Saved by the Bell with Zach and Kelly, Slater and or AC and what's her face? Gosh, just left me. Anyway, Jesse. Anyway, how they all played out, and then Screech. Yeah, he's kind of the nerdy guy that kind of tags along, that wants to get with Lisa, but just she can't handle him most of the time. My favorite character now, going back, if I watch a show, is probably Mr. Belding. I don't know. His laugh and just his attitude and everything. I don't know. He just seemed like the coolest principal in the entire world. That it would be the principal, if you could ideally have one in your school that wasn't the hateful, whatever that most of us had, that just rained down on you over every little thing. He just seems cool. Yeah, okay, Dak, you screwed up this time again, but we're gonna let you off the hook and get your life back in order, and everything's cool by the end of the episode. He was never that overbearing, authority figure. Well, and he just had that laugh that just kind of mellowed everything out.
Something to that effect.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, here's a couple casting what ifs that I found recently. Okay. One was the original concept for Slater was a John Travolta Saturday Night Fever type character, which looking back, I just can't imagine that working with the cool hip 90s Bayside they created.
Right.
But the other one was the role of Kelly came down to Tiffany Amber Thiessen, Elizabeth Berkley, or Jeannie Garth. So if Jeannie Garth had got this role, would 90210 been the show that it was, because they would have been filming at the same time. So I think it worked out great for all parties involved the way it did, but I can't imagine not having Tiffany or Elizabeth in the show. And I can't imagine 90210 without Jeannie Garth, but I thought that was very interesting. Those were the final two choices.
I've never heard that. So that's very interesting that they kind of went their own ways and it worked out.
And actually, they liked Elizabeth Berkley more. The Jessie character wasn't part of the original conception, but they thought she had the best audition of the three, so they created a character for Elizabeth Berkley after that.
They thought she was exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting. See what I did there? Okay, never mind.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it.
I'm so excited. Oh.
Well, see, and that's part of what made the show great. You could deal with real issues in a kind of off to the side way. That was the drug episode. But it wasn't like, hey, it's caffeine pills.
We make fun of it now, but back then, that wasn't like we were making fun of that show at all. That was like serious. They went a really big, serious turn. It's not like she was really on drugs, caffeine pills or whatever, but still, it was a serious turn that you followed, and you were like, oh my gosh, Jesse, what are you doing? And now we just, totally put it through the ringer. I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to reach through the screen and tell, do what I do with Big Tess. Just wing it. Just mark C.
Make a Christmas tree pattern. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Great show. Okay, I wonder if we got the same number one here.
I'm going to bet we don't. I'm going to bet we don't.
Okay.
I got a feeling you like yellow people. But I'm going to say my number one show was Seinfeld.
We have the same number one, sir.
Oh, do we?
We do.
I was thinking you was going to go Simpsons. Okay, before we talk about number one, then, honorable mention, The Simpsons. Been on the air for 30 years. Neither one of us picked it. It's hard to deny. It has to be one of the best shows that come out of that year because it's been on for 30 freaking years.
Yes.
So for all you Simpsons fans, I apologize. I watched the first couple of seasons, and I watched the Tree Houses of Horror and the Christmas episodes, and that's about it. So I'm done talking about The Simpsons.
Yeah, The Simpsons, it's the same way for me. I remember I have the VHS copy of the Christmas special, the very first one, where they get the dog from the dog track, and I loved it. Mm-hmm. I still watch it every year. And I've got through the first season or so of it. The Three-Eyed Fish, that was like my favorite episode for the longest time. And I don't know. I hit a wall with it somewhere. It might have been when it was on. It's always been a Saturday night show, hasn't it? And then they
Thursday.
moved it. Or was it a Thursday?
It was Thursday nights.
Well, maybe it was when they moved it to the weekend or something that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what happened that I kind of hit a wall with it, and I hadn't gone farther because I had the freaking Bart Simpson album, and I listened to it. I did the Bart Man. Okay, so I was a huge fan. I had the trading cards, which we'll talk about eventually, but I don't know what it was that I just kind of hit a brick wall with it.
Yeah, me
what
too.
took its place,
Well, I think for me, it was cool when I watched it and my friends watched it. But then as time goes on, you get a job and it's not cool to watch cartoons anymore, even if it is The Simpsons. And it's been on so long, you not only get a job, you have a wife and kids. And my teenage daughters, The Simpsons is still on. It just blows my mind. So congratulations to The Simpsons, but you're just not on my list.
Right. You respect it. You respect it for what it is and all the years that it's been on. It's, I major respect for this show, but just never, for some reason, it never connected with me past those first few seasons.
But back to the real number one, Seinfeld.
Okay.
Has always been my favorite. Well, I ain't gonna say always, because before it came on, I guess I had a different favorite. But ever since Seinfeld has been on, it's been my favorite television show. Even today, I've got the box sets. It streams on Hulu. I just watched the Chinese restaurant episode for about the 4,000th time just yesterday. A show about nothing. That's what everybody says, but it's not about nothing. It's about everything. It's about all the little things, all the minutia in life. And at least for me, as an adult now, at the time I didn't realize it, but as an adult now, I can see little parts of all these people I've met and I'm friends with and have worked with in all these characters. It's like they're all perfect combinations of all these people I know, just shrunk down into those 4 cast members. And a mark that a show is great and that the writing is great is that characters who can appear one time in that whole series 20 years ago since it went off the air are still talked about, like the Soup Nazi. I mean, it's in well, not counting the finale, but it's in one episode, but people remember it. The Bubble Boy with the Moops question. I mean, the writing of that show was so great that, okay, so the Soup Nazi's in one episode. How much screen time did he get? Maybe a total of 5 minutes, if that. And we still talk about him today. That's how great the show is.
Celebrate him. Celebrate him. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Festivus.
I still use the line, I mean, gosh, there's so many little just one episode things that happen in there. That's perfect that you recite a line to somebody and you connect. I don't know. I didn't get into the show probably, gosh, I might have watched it a little bit in the 90s as it, started gaining momentum. Obviously, we're talking about 89, and I don't even know what ratings it did its first season, but I think it was to the point where they were going to cancel it or something, right?
Oh, I've got some good history for you on it. We'll talk about our feelings, and then we'll go through some history on it. But
I didn't really get in and start watching like episodes until it was in syndication, and kind of like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like right after I first was married. We would watch it every afternoon whenever it came on for 2 episodes during an hour block, and I just started watching in there. And my wife doesn't like to admit it that she likes the show, that she thinks she's stupid, but she was right there with me. And I don't know. It, like you said, it's a show about nothing, but it's still just basically the day-to-day lives of these characters and those little funny little things that happen. All right, let's. What happens if we can't find the car in a parking garage?
Yeah.
And carrying around an air conditioner.
And fish in a bag that we're going to die, Jerry. They're going to die.
That was one of my favorites. And I don't know, just to build something around that. Wow. Well, people like to put it through the ringer, like some of the other shows that had what we would call a poor finale, I guess. It was just weird. It wasn't, I don't know. We didn't get the closure, in a courtroom with, bringing these characters in, but God, I think I like Newman more than I like any of the other characters on this. And that was the thing. Those like secondary characters were so great that you just waited for them to come in the next time. All of George's girlfriends and all of that stuff. Oh my gosh. All right, go with your history.
Well, before I do, like the characters were so layered and nuanced just from one appearance. It was crazy. Larry David was a genius. Yeah. But all right, so a little bit of history. So it debuted July 5th, 1989 as a summer series, like a replacement summer series thing. 5 episodes. Ratings were poor. Now here's a major what if. After those 5 episodes, NBC offered to sell the property to Fox. So the television landscape would be vastly different. Would Seinfeld be as big of a hit if it was on Fox in those days? Because remember, Fox was not that big of a network at the time.
Right.
Or would Fox have become a bigger network sooner? Because Seinfeld was a Thursday night show. Simpsons were a Thursday night show. If you had an hour block of Simpsons Seinfeld, that's like powerhouse television in retrospect, looking back. That would be powerhouse television.
Right. Interesting.
So they got a second season contract after Fox turned them down. Fox didn't want Seinfeld. I'm sure whoever made that decision and got fired a few years later. Their second season was only 12 episodes, and instead of debuting in the fall, it was pushed back to January because of the Gulf War coverage on NBC. So their third season was their first actual full season. But you were talking about the ratings. It didn't even crack the top 30 until its 4th season. So it was a real slow starter, real slow. Wow, and it didn't hit number 1 until its 6th season. But by then it was a runaway success, and I'm sure everybody's heard that final season Jerry was getting $1 million per episode, and everybody else was getting like $750,000 or $500,000 per episode.
Yeah.
And NBC wanted to do one more season, but Seinfeld wanted to go out on top. They offered him $100 million for one more season, just for him, just Jerry Seinfeld, $100 million. But he turned it down. But he's smart because just in syndication, the show has earned $4.6 billion. That's
insane. That's insane. Wow. Oh my gosh.
It won the Outstanding Comedy Series Emmy in 1993. But from that point till its end, it was nominated every year. But that was its only win. It lost to the same show from 94 through its final episode, which was Frasier. Won every year in that stretch, with Seinfeld finishing second. So,
wow.
Good company there.
Yeah. And again, it hit me more in those syndication years than ever. And it just built, I guess, my liking for it more than those early years, like you said, because nobody's watching it up until what did you say? 93 is when it won the award. So
yeah,
that's 4 years, like you said. That, man, it could have been on cable or something.
Well,
and it wouldn't have mattered.
I was all in. I mean, I liked it from the first episode because those first 5 episodes were titled The Seinfeld Chronicles. But then they retooled it a little bit. But I was all in. I watched it. It was like the first television show I can remember. If I wasn't off work, I had to have the timer set on VCR to record it. And I watched it as soon as I got home. And like you, we had their local Fox affiliate showed it every night from 7 to 8 in a 2-episode block. And then they also showed it from 10 to 11 in a 2-hour block. So I was watching 4 episodes a day through the week. And on Thursdays, I'd have the new one. I'd watch 5 episodes on that day.
Wow.
I still have a stack of recorded VHS full of Seinfeld syndication episodes. Of course, that
And
was
I
in the
bet
days before DVD, so you didn't know you'd just be able to buy them in chunks. But
right. I bet you they would still sell on eBay if you put them up there.
well, I can't part with that. What's the matter with you?
Well, you got the DVD, you got the Blu-ray, you got the digital copy. I don't know. I've got this thing. I would love to like contact somebody at the FBI or whoever's monitoring all these, different nuances of show. Once you buy like a music album, if you've got it on record, you should own it for the rest of your life, no matter what format it's on. That's my take anyway. So yeah, if you can prove that you've recorded it on your VCR in 1994, then you should be able to say, yep, here, I got it. Give me the Blu-ray set.
Yep. I agree.
Anyway, yeah, for me, there's just too many episodes to really go in and try to determine even probably a top 5 list. I mean, all the Steinbrenner episodes with George, hiding under his desk, and that was just a fun character too. So there's just so many of those, like peripheral characters that they plug into that are just so great and just seem to excel at portraying that character. Who else could you picture as Newman?
Yeah, nobody at this point.
Nobody. It's Wayne.
Yeah. And I like the fact that, again, going back to the writing, they would just pepper episodes, 4 or 5, and maybe even a season, just one-off mentions, and then just blow it all off with one full episode. And the best example is like Kramer with his beach cologne. It was just something he would mention offhanded. Hey, Jerry, it'd be a good idea? A cologne that makes you smell like you've been at the beach. And Jerry's reply, and then you wouldn't hear about it. And then the next episode is something else. And then finally there's a whole episode where Calvin Klein creates the beach. And he's, that's my idea, Jerry. So you wouldn't even know that they were building up to an episode. And they've done this numerous times with all kinds of subjects. It just very layered show.
Kramer was really the only one that I recognized too. When you go into the show, I mean, I never remembered Julie Louis-Dreyfus on Seinfeld or on Saturday Night Live or anything like that, and I hadn't remember seeing George other than jumping around in a Big Mac commercial, probably.
But McDLT commercial.
There you go, McDLT. Thanks for the correction. See, this is why I have you on the show.
Oh, you're welcome.
But I love the Problem Child movies, and Kramer and his Smiley Pies. Oh my gosh,
Smiley Pie.
And then UHF. I mean, he's not exactly the same character, but it's I recognized him. So him as the wacky neighbor was just fun with all these little nuances that you remember him from other movies, at least that I had watched.
Yeah.
But I think that's what really kind of drew me there. And then once you get to know just all the characters, and the writing just topped it off. It was great. He is a genius. Okay, well, let's wrap up our Seinfeld then, if you don't have anything else. And do you got any other honorable mentions you want to throw out there?
Sure. I'm not going to go into any detail, but I also had stuff wrote down, like Coach debuted that year. I watched a lot of it. Baywatch, Cops, Family Matters, Rescue 911 was great. Tales from the Crypt was always good. And MTV's Rock and Jock games started in 1989, which were always a treat.
Oh, yeah. I did not have that down. The home boys versus the away boys.
Mm-hmm.
All the softball games.
And basketball.
Basketball, too, right. Yep. Honorable mentions for me, Nickelodeon game show called Make the Grade. I always loved that show. That was in that kind of afternoon block when I got home from school, and they had those fun game shows for kids there. I remember watching Doogie Howser, but I never got into it, and have never got into it really. But I remember it being a highly rated show when it first came out. We've talked about Rescue 911. I guess we might have got the years wrong. I think Wyatt and I talked about it in 87, but at least from Wikipedia, it was 89. And that was a show Dad loved and just razzed me about. Don't ever, crawl through a drainage pipe, and get stuck in there. Yes, sir. I remember I never had HBO as a kid, but my neighbors did. I would go up there and watch movies and stuff. I remember watching a couple episodes of Tales from the Crypt and being freaked out.
Yeah.
That was just, I've never really gone back. I'm not really much of the horror fan, but there were some weird episodes I remember from that show. Cops, that was another one my dad just watched every single, I think was it Friday night or was it Saturday night?
Friday night.
Friday night. Had to watch Cops. Didn't watch really Coach. I remember the show Alien Nation, which I think was also a movie or maybe a TV movie. That was weird. That's like, if you've seen that movie, what's that movie on Netflix now? Will Smith. Bright. Bright is the name of the movie. But it's like this, alien race that comes and we try to live together. And there's these like two cops that are partners. It was an interesting show. I remember just the makeup and the how they had the costumes for the aliens, and acting somewhat like humans going through like, American society at the time. But that was just one of those shows that kind of hit me too. I remember watching some Major Dad on, I think that was on USA Network. That was a fun show.
I think I've seen it, but I never really watched it. It just didn't appeal to me. And not taking anything away from any of these shows we're talking about. Maybe I didn't watch it because it was on directly against some of these shows we did talk about. Not that those were not great shows. I just never gave them a chance because I was all in on this other stuff we've already talked about.
Yep. And the last one I had on my list was MTV Unplugged.
Oh yeah, I had that written down too.
Yeah, all of those straight from. I can't remember which music awards it was when John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora just played acoustic, and I think it was kind of born somewhat from that performance into MTV Unplugged, and it got me hooked. Several years. I've bought several of the albums too in the early '90s. Alice in Chains and what else did I have that was MTV Unplugged? Nirvana. Those concerts I'll say were really great. Different. I don't know, just a different attitude, different style to some of those songs that we listened to thousands of times on the radio, and kind of sucked me in.
It may not be anymore. I haven't looked in a while, but for the longest time, Eric Clapton's Unplugged was the best-selling live album of all time. Maybe recently something else has overtook it, but yeah, that series was really good. And that was like event television too, because they were kind of on a non-specific schedule. But they would, when they'd have a new one coming out, they would hype it endlessly on everything you're watching on MTV. Yep. And like, oh man, Wednesday night, 3 weeks from now, it's Nirvana Unplugged. I gotta clear my schedule. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure that helped sell. I mean, that just as an just an album perspective, and when when Eric Clapton reworked Layla for that concert, I still get irritated at that fan that goes "woo" in the middle of the chorus, but. Yeah, I mean, it was event television, definitely, for MTV. And it was, I don't know, it seems to me kind of like the last hurrah for MTV.
For the real MTV that we knew.
For the music-centered MTV, yeah. Unplugged was kind of that last little journey. They do I guess VH1 was the Storytellers. I think that was about that same era, too. But, yeah, that last little push for Unplugged, after that ended and they just went reality and whatever the crap they're showing now, it was gone. But anyway, Okay, well, I think that's it, Mickey. We went through 1989, I think, pretty well. We several there on the honorable mentions that we watched, and it was fun, man. I had a great time.
Oh yeah, I love old television, and '89 was just a great year for old television. Well,
Yeah.
I guess it'd be for new television in '89, but old now, new then, great year. You know, I struggled when we done the '88, but this one was just, you know, like you said, I had 15, 16 things written down, and I could have put them in any, besides Seinfeld being one, I could have put them all in any order after that and would have been happy with my list. So,
Gotcha.
Great television year.
I'm glad we're ending kind of with 89 too, because if you look at 1990, I did an article several years ago on 1990 and how many TV shows were adapted from 80s movies that year, like Uncle Buck, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I can't remember. There was like 5 or 6 of them that debuted this, and they were like total crap, you know. So we're ending, I think, on a good year here. I think next time we're going to go all the way back to 1980 and look at shows. But man, it just hit a wall in 1990. So it would be a struggle, I think, if we can get to 5 shows.
Yeah,
if
maybe.
we kept going.
I'd have to look at the list, but you know, I'd say you're right. 89 was, well, you know, 89 was the last hurrah of the 80s. A lot of stuff in 89 was great. So.
Yeah.
And maybe we think that way because we're more attuned to it. We were more of an age of consciousness in 89 at our age that we're at, you know.
Yep.
And we can remember more of it. So.
Yep, definitely agree. Okay, well, that's going to do it for us. Thank you, Mickey, for coming on. Retro Rambler, the RetroRamblings.com. If you want to keep the conversation going, just shoot us your top 5 list. Just tweet us, tag RD80s and tag @Yesterdayville, and tell us what you think about 1989 TV, and if we are just out of our minds for not putting The Simpsons in our top 5, let us know.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep that conversation going.
And definitely shout out, if you remember the one time the alligators come on the track on Rock and Roller Games. That's an iconic moment in 1989 that everybody needs to see.
Yeah, like I said, I'm off the YouTube as soon as we wrap this up here. So, again, thanks, Mickey, for coming on. And go find our show notes over there, rediscoverthe80s.com. You can put a comment there as well. But we are both pretty active on Twitter. So go find us over there and shoot us your top 5 and see if you remember the alligator pit there. And
it's burned in my mind. I'll never forget that. That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, subscribing, downloading, and we will see you next time on the Rankum. This is Jason Gross for the Rediscover the 80s podcast.
Thanks, Jason.
All right.